there's double standards everywhere in sport and AFL football, depending on what the charge is.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Eddie and Jimmy. You're on your Jimmy boy. You can join us, of course, at Eddie and Jimmy at 9.com.au. Thanks to Fiji Airways and Hyundai. By the way, I was talking to Paul Scurra from Fiji Airways, Jim, and he said that he's getting knocked over in a rush from people from the podcast and from Footy Classified wanting to get on board, understanding that a lot of people, want to get a bit of a break out of the Melbourne winter in particular, but winter around the country. You can go to Fiji. It's only up the road. It's magnificent. They've got everything from Kokomo right through to a thatched hut. And then if you want to go on to America, you can go to Vancouver in Canada. You can go to San Francisco, LA, and into the hub that is Dallas. And don't forget, then if you want to then go on to America, onto Europe or beyond, that's the way to go. So Fiji Airways, a fantastic opportunity. And our good friends at Hyundai, I had the South Korean Consul General and the guys from Hyundai as my guests at Collingwood Carlton last week. Ripping blokes, and they've got some fantastic cars, and the EVs are just jumping off at the moment, mate, and there's a new shipment coming in very shortly. So welcome to all our friends from Hyundai and from Fiji Airways. What do you got for us today, Jim?
Well, I've got to get two Christmas cards, one to Paul Scurra and one to Hyundai by the sounds of it. I need a bigger car and a holiday, so I might be just hanging out with you a little bit more often at the footy by the sounds of it, Ed. But
it's a place to be, buddy. You should be part of it.
That's right. Each week we want to hear from you. What are your questions, ideas and thoughts? We love hearing from you. It's pretty simple. Just hit up our email, Eddie and Jimmy at 9.com.au. Send them through. We've got this one, and I'm not sure how to say the handle, but we got a bit of feedback, Ed. We always love feedback. You can do that hashtag Ask Eddie and Jimmy. At Stibhen said bringing Dan on was a top tier move. Respect that. We did get a lot of feedback regarding Dan Gorringe, and Daniel followed on with that, saying props to Eddie and Jimmy for being some of the only old man media. We're old man media. People to genuinely embrace what DDF is doing, other modern day footy media people are doing. There's room for everyone. Dr. Shoot said, one of your best shows, Eddie and Jimmy. We're getting lots of really good feedback. Swift Jar said, always really liked Eddie and Jimmy. What Dan's doing at DDF is awesome. Marketing perspective, changing how people are thinking. And John said, what a crossover. My two favourite footy podcasts are Eddie, Jimmy and DDF. And my top three, this is from Token said, that was Josh before, my top three footy personalities by far. Geez, I've got onto the coattails of you two beautifully here. I've made the smart decision, just followed you two in and around the rails. But just one bit on that. I think the feedback and the general takeaway, and it was really fascinating to hear Dan and yourself converse about the similarities between the footy show, Sam Newman, Dan. And I think the thing that jumped out to me too, Ed, is I know Dan loves to play the entertainer, but off air, Ed, and I think you'll vouch for this, he's incredibly smart. He's whip smart. He understands the way the tide or the wind's going and how to utilise that, promote the game. He's a passionate footy fan first and foremost. You can hear the love for the game and his Carlton Footy Club. And I think off the back of it too is you made the point, there's room for everyone. You've got choice.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to listen to what we do, and you don't have to listen. If you don't want to listen to what Dan does, you don't have to listen. But there's something there for everyone in the game.
Well, I think, Jim, the other thing is that, I'd laughed. I'm watching the Collingwood Carlton game, very focused, as you can imagine, on Thursday night. And my wife, Carla, now she's got into Dan does footy largely because Xander's on his show on a Friday. But she loves it. And she was driving me mad. I'm trying to watch the game. She's going, oh, have a look at this. I said, I don't want to watch this. I'm watching the game because I was focused on it. But to me, it was exactly what used to happen in the crowds when Lou Richards used to have these, I'm going to go and cut Ted Whitten's front yard with nail scissors. I'm going to row, Billy Goggin across the Barwon River at Geelong lose, and all those things that he did over the years. So everything that is old is new again, and in a new format. And that's why I think he does a fantastic job. I really enjoy it. I think it's great. I think old man media has got more than a place and continues to. I think what Craig Hutchison does with his team including Kane Corns and Gary Lyon and Gerard Waitley and all those crew. They do a fantastic job on Fox Footy. And, I go back to what we've done. We started those, the Footy Classified was an idea that started when I was CEO of the Nine Network back in whatever it was, 2004. The Footy Show, of course, Sam and I and Ian Johnson came together, and Ralph and Harvey Silver, Ralph Horowitz, Trevor Marmalade, of course, and then the players with their contribution over the years. Then later on, James Brayshaw took it over. Don't forget, when I started Triple M football back in the day, Jim, everyone said this won't work. Football doesn't work on FM. Well, it changed. There were all these things that are going on. So the new platforms coming in, I think it's amazing because it keeps it relevant. And if, we're going to continue to have the role that we have in the community and in sport and make the media money, we have to continue to mine these new areas. As someone says, mate, you've got to fish where the fish are, but you've got to find it where the fish are sometimes. And there might be a new school of fish somewhere else. And I think Dan Gorringe has hit the zeitgeist when it comes to that right at this very moment. So it was great to have him on. I always like listening to these guys because I walked away learning a lot more about where things are going as well.
So did I. Now, if you haven't listened to the interview yet, just head to the Eddie and Jimmy feed, wherever you get your podcast, and you'll see it. Let's get into the questions, Ed. And this one is for you straight off the top. This is from Joel, or as they say in America, Joel, ANZAC Jumpers. Hi, guys. I've noticed most teams have a special ANZAC-themed Guernsey this year. I like some of the ideas as it can be a moving tribute to commemorate the past, players and sacrifice. What I don't like about this is that the clubs are profiteering off the back of the Anzacs. That really leaves a bad taste in my mouth. All proceeds, and I mean all proceeds, as in 100% of sales should be going to the RSL or the families who have dealt with the aftermaths of loved ones going to war. Discuss.
I think that's there's a fair point there from Joel. I know on Anzac Day, I need to check if it's still like that, but basically all the proceeds from the Anzac Day game used to go from Guernseys, etc., go to the RSL. At least there's a check that's written to the RSL. The Anzac Day game itself does cost a fair bit of dough to put on because of you imagine how much the security is, and particularly at the moment around Anzac Day. So there's a lot of extra costs on the Anzac Day game. But I think that whichever way you do it, I agree with Joel that we should be really doing things for legacy and for the RSL. And there's no doubt that we see it on a daily basis. The tragedy of war for those who come back from it, and also now, more and more, we don't learn from wars, do we? So there's going to be more of them. So I totally agree with Joel's sentiment.
Great question, Joel. Zach,
whether that's the way to do it is another discussion. But yes, I agree with Joel's sentiment, and we need to look to make sure that continues to be a major part of the game, not just the publicity.
Yeah, well done, Joel. Zach, new game. Hey lads, love the show. Love the new drinking game of having a shot every time Ed says Pete Volandis.
Have I said it a bit lately? I think I was saying that Peter Volandis, there's one for you, might have done the AFL draw this year. He's certainly, they're making it a bit easier for him, that's for sure at the moment. So good, I like that. Nice drinking game.
Hopefully we're big enough to acknowledge when people do things well in other codes, and maybe we can learn from it and actually admit, you know what? They're doing some good things, and maybe we should borrow from some of their ideas.
And at the same time, we obviously focus on the AFL, and there's more chance you're going to look at somebody who's got a pimple in their nose than if they don't. So that's what we're looking at. I think we are supporters largely of the AFL, and there's a lot to like about the last weekend's game, the close games. The fact that Collingwood and Carlton got nearly 80,000, on a Thursday night was a fantastic result given where they are in the ladder, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot to like about it, and some really good games over the weekend. So let's hope we get through this week. Let's hope we clean up the Elijah Holland situation and we get all the tribunal stuff out of the way, and we can focus and go forwards.
I'll let you pose the question, but I'm just preempting it because I can see it. We could nearly dedicate a whole episode to this topic. So far away.
Am I wrong that a player who says a bad word, I agree, that should never be said, and that he has admitted saying before, getting 10 weeks, that he demanded he didn't say, then a player who takes illegal drugs getting nothing? Are we going to wait till a player has a fit or worse case pass away on the field? Okay, so what we're saying is We get 10 weeks for Lance Collard using a homophobic slur, and yet there's no one getting rubbed out for taking illegal drugs. Is that sort of the translation of what I tried to read there?
Yeah. Just the thing, Davey, that was his second offence. That's why it's up to 10 weeks.
Yeah.
But your point's still the same, that the fact that even if you take your first offence, it's 5 or 6 weeks for saying a bad word. And yes, Davey, we will acknowledge that you agree it's not the right words to be using any time, let alone on a football field. But he's making the comparison. And Ed, I know you've said this a number of times, that we have players who take illegal drugs won't get a mandatory sanction. So, like, you're going to do your head in. There's double standards everywhere in sport and AFL football, depending on what the charge is.
See, I'm not necessarily after the players as a sanction. My point has always been they should be properly rehabilitated, because the rules are you're not allowed to take drugs and play football. At the moment, we have rules that help you take drugs and play football. There you go. Can I ask you this one, though, just before we move off this topic? Now, this is a question I've raised with notice and probably maybe not even an answer to. The Lance Collard situation is going to throw up some real discussion points. And what it is now is you've got two marginalised groups. You've got the LBG group plus, and my apologies for not having all the letters in the alphabet there that I needed to have, but you get what I'm saying, and I say it with total respect. So you've got that group of people in our community who, by the way, have done nothing in this situation other than cop a drive-by, as we said last week. You've got the Indigenous guys at the moment who are saying Lance is a kid who comes from a pretty horrific background. He wasn't saying it as a slur against that group of society. He was in the middle of a fight. He needs and understands that he did wrong. Should he get 10 weeks, and it could end his career and possibly his one shot of having a life that's better than where he's been? Are we going to get more Indigenous kids who are prepared to come up? Do we need to help them? Does there need to be some, latitude with some of these young kids coming back? So, for example, if you're a highly educated young kid and you say it, is that judged the same way as somebody who is struggling in life? It's a tough, though I'm trying to say here, Jim. Help me out here. Right?
No. I think you're asking, instead of, and again, tell me if you're wrong, because we've got to be very careful with this. I think you're saying judge things completely on case-by-case nature, and that is looking at all the set of facts and all the circumstances. And as much as we try to implement hard and fast, call it mandatory sentencing for different things, that there is different cases that need to be nuanced and be thought through a lot clear with a microscope and a lens that takes into all the facts, not just in that moment, but also leading up to that moment and post that moment. Is that a fair way you've tried to put it?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we're both bumbling around it because we're deliberately trying to be very sensitive to the situation. So let me cut to the chase on this. Should Lance Collard have been called to a meeting, a mitigation meeting, and sat down, and if he apologised to the player who heard it and to the player it was directed at, and the AFL were able to help him go through a further level of education? Now, we all go, how much is enough? When does it sink in? So we agree with that, okay? I'm sort of arguing against myself on this.
No. Can I jump in? It sounds like, how do you strike the balance between consequence and education? So you still deal with the consequences for your actions, because that is a way of learning that things have repercussions, but also providing the education and support for people to get better.
So the real world situation on Jim is this. Quite rightly, and I agree with this, the AFL came out and said, okay, until it sinks in, we're going to double the penalty, basically. So they went from 2 to 4. and 4 to 8, and Collard got 4 to get 6 last time, and he's got 9 plus 2 suspended this time. You had Isaac Rankin, who got 5 and then reduced down to 4. But so they're heavy penalties. I mean, Barry Hall got 6 for nearly killing Brent Stake at that time. So we're talking serious penalties in this situation. And I agree, they should be serious. And we're stepping up and we're saying, no, this is what we stand for. This is an area of life that the AFL has played a great role. Women's football has played a great role in. We're getting players now who are coming out as gay and bisexual. Let's keep the momentum going in a positive way. Now, then you go, right, okay, now that makes sense, makes a lot of sense until it doesn't in this situation with Lance Collard. So is Lance getting 9 weeks plus 2 and everything that goes with it? Is that going to kill his career off? And should that be bad luck, Lance? We told you the first time, how long does it take to sink in? Or do you actually sit down and say, right, is there a better way to get the result that we want from both of these situations?
Yep.
I suppose they're the questions of which we probably don't have any answers just yet.
Liam, using the lasso rule to advantage. I played semi-pro soccer for 20 years. As a defender, we were always taught as youngsters and further into my career to use the sideline as a second defender. You would put it out if need be, reset, get your structure back. Even though you lose possession, I feel like the trade-off was fair. You would get an easy out and time to reset, but the attackers would still keep possession. If the AFL adopt rule this between the 50s, how would it change overall tactics and pressure patterns? Would it force the corridor to be used more often as the threat of a turnover is more prominent? Look, yes, I think...
Well, that's the whole idea, yeah.
Yeah, that is the whole idea, to open up the ground, to stop players putting it out of bounds. And he is right. AFL clubs still use the boundary line as a defender. When you keep your player there, they sort of, try and corral them towards the boundary line because they've got that safety net. Do you take the inside shoulder, being the corridor, so defensively? But we've seen ball use already when it's last possession, and you're probably a little bit more keener to go quicker to last touch out of bounds, Ed. Yeah. We've seen, a reluctance for players to do that handball down the line or the quick kick down the line because they know it'll be coming back rapidly.
Yeah, well, that's you either have it or you don't. I don't know why the AFL always just puts itself under so much pressure. They come up with a rule and then they have to just work around it. They've got to soften it. They've got to kumbaya the whole thing around. And, everything's done by committee. And you know what a horse that is designed by a committee is, don't you? A camel.
I haven't heard that one.
There's one for you. Yeah. That's what ends up happening. You design a horse. Oh, yeah, but what if it runs out of water? Oh, we'll put a hump on it. Oh, what if we'll put 2 humps on it? Oh, we'll do this. What if it's running on the sand? Oh, we'll do that. Come on, just what are we trying to do? We want to speed the game up when our blokes kicking out of bounds. We've gone from John Beckworth kicking it into the Jollymont row yards, out of bounds used to be fine, throw it in, to, okay, out of bounds on the full, to now let's get this going even faster. Okay, now players can adapt. If the ball goes over the line out of bounds, pick up your man, run back. Pretty simple.
It is. It is. I think players and clubs would adapt very quickly. So that's a good question from you, Liam, and that's all the questions we have this week, Ed.
Yeah, good on you, mate. Look, we sort of mumbled our way through the Lance Collard situation, but it is one that is a real issue and one that St Kilda are basing their appeal on, that the result was manifestly unjust in the end, the suspension, and it was based on the rules of the AFL, but these are rules that have been made on the run and without any real consistency, if you like. So let's see what happens with all that. All right, mate. Talk to you tomorrow. Yep. Get our predictions for the weekend ahead. Follow us on Eddie and Jimmy, wherever you get your podcasts. Find us on Instagram and YouTube. Just search for Eddie and Jimmy and send through your questions to us at eddieandjimmy.com.au. Thanks to our great friends at Fiji Airways and at Hyundai.